Hey guys, it's Danny. So today we're going to discuss about terrestrial or semi-terrestrial orchids versus epiphytic orchids. There are some differences, some ways to determine if your orchid is a terrestrial or a semi-terrestrial in case you don't know and the articles are conflicting. I think this is an important subject because they are different and they require some different care. But to start with, the vast majority of orchids available for sale are epiphytic. Phalaenopsis orchids, Cattleyas, Oncidiums, Dendrobiums, and pretty much all the orchids you can easily find in the stores are epiphytic, with one single exception. The Paphiopedilum orchid, which is indeed another very common orchid in the stores. However, it is the only one of its kind which is not pure epiphytic, it is semi-terrestrial. But first, let's make a distinction about these terms because I personally find that articles are a bit conflicting, so I'll tell you what I believe. So the epiphytic orchids are the ones that do not grow in soil whatsoever. All of them grow on the tree trunks, they're not surrounded by any type of soil or debris whatsoever. In my experience, these types of orchids usually create aerial roots, and this is simply because their roots really do not need to feel moisture all the time around them. As I was saying, things like Phalaenopsis, Cattleyas, Oncidium, and Dendrobiums, which are widely available, are epiphytic orchids. And they all seem to be prone to create aerial roots whether we like it or not in some cases. What this tells us is that their medium needs to be very well ventilated. The more air pockets it can hold, the better for the roots. So one of the signs you can look out for in order to determine if your orchid is epiphytic or not is the creation of aerial roots. If an orchid has aerial roots which are growing without any type of issue, most probably your orchid is epiphytic because roots can actually adapt to low humidity environments. Now let's take semi-terrestrial orchids. What does it mean? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that these orchids grow in compacted soil. They can grow in the mulch on the forest floor in their natural environment. And many times the floor consists of dead leaves and dead debris, not necessarily compacted soil. So they do not grow on trees and they do not grow in soil either, but they do grow in a layer of very ventilated debris, such as twigs, dead leaves, and all of those good stuff. A good indication that your orchid might be semi-terrestrial or terrestrial is the lack of aerial roots. You will most probably not see aerial roots on orchids like Paphiopedilums and other types that are not epiphytic. So take this as an indication that your orchid is not truly epiphytic. Now, because these orchids are semi-terrestrial, they do like a well-draining, aerated medium. However, the vast majority of them will be happier if they stay rather moist rather than bone dry for long periods of time. For things like Paphiopedilums, which I consider semi-terrestrial, a well-draining and pretty chunky medium works well if you keep it rather damp than dry. As I was saying, they're not pure terrestrial. They still need a loose medium. However, they're not epiphytic either, so their roots cannot adapt to total dryness. Now, there are some pure terrestrial orchids we can purchase as well, and I had the Pleone orchids and the Habenaria orchid. The Habenaria produces a corm and actually goes dormant during winter time, and the Pleones produce pseudobulbs, and again, they go dormant during winter time. Now, I've discovered that with these orchids, a loose, chunky medium is not preferred. They would be much happier in a soil type mixture. Of course, it needs to be very well draining. However, the chunkiness of bark and ceramis and hydrogen is really not to their liking, and the roots don't grow really well. Again, with these types of orchids, you will not see aerial roots because they cannot adapt to pure air environments. In most cases as well, they prefer to be rather damp than dry, except for the dormant period. Now, how does this help us in our orchid hobby? Well, I think it's really important to know. For example, I already knew that Paphiopedilums should adapt to my new style of growing, the inorganic medium, pretty well. Because they're not pure terrestrials, they can adapt to a medium which is still chunky, still retains air pockets, but if I keep it rather damp, they should be just fine. I also suspected, and it kinda has been confirmed, that pure terrestrial orchids do not do so well in chunky medium, and would much rather prefer a soil type of mixture. Knowing if our plant is pure epiphytic or semi-terrestrial or terrestrial gives us an idea of how to pot it. For example, Paphiopedilum orchids should not be potted too high up on top of the medium, like we would a Phalaenopsis orchid, because the roots will simply not develop in air. For this reason, the stem needs to be a little buried, so whatever upper root emerges has a chance to grow. If it doesn't have humidity and soil around it, it will probably not grow at all. This is one of the reasons why Paphiopedilums and other orchids of the types do not do so well mounted. So mounting things like Paphiopedilums, Cymbidiums, and even Zygopetalums might prove to be a very bad idea. And of course, knowing the type of orchid we have gives us an idea of how to water. Usually epiphytic orchids can tolerate drought better than semi-terrestrial or terrestrial orchids. For this reason, I prefer to keep my semi-terrestrial and terrestrials rather damp, and make sure that the medium is not compacted, is well draining, so it does not suffocate the roots, but I make sure that it never goes bone dry for multiple days. You also have lesser chances of rotting the roots of a terrestrial or semi-terrestrial orchid rather than a epiphyte. So from this point of view, if you're a heavy waterer, maybe this type of orchid is better suited for you rather than an epiphyte. Now, the best thing to do is research any new orchid you purchase before purchasing or after you purchase it. If you have a tag with your orchid, just Google search it and see if it is an epiphyte, terrestrial, or semi-terrestrial. As my experience go, the terrestrial orchids that I owned are the Pleiones and the Habenaria orchid. The semi-terrestrials are the Paphiopedilums, Cymbidiums, and Zygopetalum orchids, and the epiphytes are the rest of my collection, which is pretty much 95% of my collection. Now, there might be orchids out there which are a bit of both worlds, in the sense that they have a terrestrial part and an epiphytic part, and I have one of those. This is my vanilla planifolia. So the lower part is potted in terrestrial orchid mix and is doing fantastic. However, this is a vine orchid. As it grows, it attaches to the surfaces and creates aerial roots. These roots are perfectly capable of absorbing moisture and nutrients and all of that fun stuff. However, it is advised that a vanilla orchid has a terrestrial part as well. So potting it in a terrestrial mix is a good idea, and then providing maybe a rod to grow on and attach, something that does retain water, will help the aerial roots stay hydrated. And the little guy that you hear on the background right now is actually the second part of this video. Okay, so the reason, or one of the reasons why I haven't been posting every day lately is the fact that we just got a pet bird, and he is a baby Patagonian conure. He is a parrot. We have it for a few days, and when I say baby, I mean baby. This guy is still eating formula and is still very dependent on us. So especially in the past few days, he needed to adjust to his new home. He needed to adjust to us. He did adjust to us in the sense that he is absolutely dependent on us and makes such a riot when we leave that we simply need to be with him all the time. He's about 3 months old, I would say, at this point. Maybe less than that though. But he is already the smartest bird that I've ever saw. We already started to teach him some tricks and he picks it up immediately. We were actually just talking that if you would try this with a dog, he would not pick up things as fast as our bird. And if you know me, you know that I absolutely love birds, and I have been missing Jackie like crazy, and my boyfriend really always wanted a parrot. He likes birds as well. So we decided it was time to get a bird. However, we ended up getting the cutest baby bird ever, and also the sweetest spawn of evil you've ever seen. But we love him. I'm already so in love with him. I'll try to add a picture to you guys. Keep in mind, he's a baby. He does not have adult feathers yet. The colors are kind of dull still, but if you Google the Patagonian conure, you can see the full coloration of the adults. So right now I had to get away for a bit and film this for you guys, but I'm gonna go back and I think it's time to give the baby some formula. I think he's hungry. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Now you know part of the reason why I was not consistent with my videos. It's not that I ran out of ideas like some suggested. I know that's a bit of banter, I don't mind it, but anyway, that's the thing. I'm really happy to have a pet bird once again, and I want to train my little baby to be okay in the greenhouse in the future, because this is one of those big birds that can be trained and are okay to be moved around, and I want him to be okay in the greenhouse so I can fill him as well. Anyway, if you'd like to see more orchid videos from me and stay up to date, simply subscribe to my channel. I post on a daily basis, hopefully. Always feel free to leave me comments down below if you have suggestions or questions or whatever you want to say to me. If you ever want to send me a letter, do so at the address you see on the screen or in the description below, and choose an option on the screen if you like to visit my website orchidnature.com or watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you all next time. Bye!